Joining me now is Bob Shrum, Warsaw Professor of Politics at USC and Democratic Strategist. Also Matt Schlapp, Chairman of the American Conservative Union and former White House Political Director for George W. Bush. And Perry Bacon, NBC News Senior Political Reporter. Professor, let me begin with you. Would you want Biden to enter this race now, knowing everything you know and handicapping what the future might look like in the next few months?
I don't think anybody knows whether he's going to run. I think he hasn't yet decided. There are a lot of hothouse stories out there. If he enters the race, Hillary Clinton will still be the favorite. He'll be the underdog, but it will be a whole new race, and he brings some real strengths to it. He's affirmative. He's a joyful campaigner. He's a happy warrior on the political trail. The buzzword this year, Michael, is authenticity. Joe Biden is authentic in a year that craves that. He does have real political resources, some very smart political people around him. I think there is a question of whether or not he can raise enough money. He doesn't have to raise as much money, but can he raise enough money? And I also think it'll be very interesting to see how he positions himself, what his argument is.
All right. Matt, the Daily Beast speculates Biden's entry could lead to a hard fight Democrats would rather avoid. If he jumps in the race, how will the Clinton campaign handle it?
Oh, they're not going to be very happy, that's for sure. But look, I think her problem, she has got so many problems. First of all, she has this investigation, but she has this underlying nagging weakness that she's really been a poor candidate. She hasn't been able to kind of put this away, as you would kind of using a sports analogy. So she almost needs somebody to make her better. I think in all candor, 8 years ago, or almost 8 years ago, when she was running against Barack Obama and was the front runner then, she became a much better candidate when she got pushed. Someone has, you're a Democrat and you like Hillary Clinton, you've got to have some dynamic that makes her improve on the stump. Maybe a fierce competition will help her, or maybe she'll just eventually lose again.
Well, there's speculation, Perry Bacon, that President Obama would back Biden over Clinton because of the issues surrounding her emails, besides the kind of intimacy and tight bonds they formed as president and vice president. What are you hearing?
I have not heard that. So far, I've heard President Obama respects Secretary Clinton, respects Vice President Biden, and likes both of them, and is not going to endorse anytime soon.
Come on, Perry Bacon. Come on, Perry Bacon. Come on, what's the skinny?
I agree with that.
We know you've heard something, man.
Not anything about it. Obama, I think, would be very reluctant to endorse. In fact, thinking about Obama endorsing and a sort of blocking the first female president would be a really brave and challenging thing to do. I would say about Biden, Bernie Sanders is doing really well, and the liberals and the people on the left really like him. Hillary Clinton has the establishment. The question for Biden, I think, is less about his family or whether he wants to run. He wants to be president. He's run twice. We know that. But does he have any support in the Democratic Party? I read a lot of stories. I write some of them. I find very few people who right now would say, I would vote for Biden over Hillary and over Sanders. Very few people write like that right now.
And you read some of the stories you write as well. That's a very important thing. So here's what President Obama said back in 2014 when asked about Biden's future in 2016.
I've got somebody who I think will go down as one of the finest vice presidents in history. And he has been, as I said earlier, a great partner in everything that I do. I suspect that there may be other potential candidates for 2016 who have been great friends and allies. I know that we've got an extraordinary Secretary of State who did great service for us and worked with me and Joe to make the country safer.
Bob, before I get your reaction to that, did you see the press conference yesterday where Ernst basically said, look, the president, of course, feels very warmly, and this is the best decision he's ever made. Was that an implicit endorsement, given what we know about President Obama?
No. And I think President Obama will take the same course that Ronald Reagan took in 1988. He didn't endorse his vice president, George H.W. Bush, until Bush had the nomination pretty much sewed up. But so much of this conversation about Biden, Perry, it worries me in the sense that I think we're probably a little simplistic about how we talk about this. What's his argument going to be? He's going to go out there and say, I really am for the middle class. I have a lifetime of fighting for the middle class. How's he going to deal with the Sanders problem? I think we've seen it before. We saw it with Howard Dean. Unless and until Sanders convinced Democrats that he can win a general election, you're going to see some of those voters, I would think, move away from him as a primary gets closer. Matt's right, too, about one other thing, by the way. Hillary Clinton facing this challenge could very well up her game. That's exactly what she did in 2008, and it's what she needs to do now.
Yeah, but what about if Biden turns out to be Steph Curry as opposed to LeBron James? It could be tough.
Let me just say that, you know,
and Matt, while you jump in, would conservatives prefer Biden over Clinton? But go on and finish your point. But tell us which one.
We're plenty fine with either one of them. And I know I'm the Republican on the set here, but let me just say, as a former White House political director, it's not what President Obama says publicly. It's what he tells people confidentially. And I've heard nothing that would indicate that Barack Obama is putting any cold water on Joe Biden. I think all Democrats are looking at Hillary Clinton, both this investigation and just her performance, and they are clearly worried. Every honest Democrat will tell you they are worried, and they need to have a backup strategy, and Joe Biden seems like the best one.
So, Perry, how important is the Elizabeth Warren piece to this puzzle to progressives?
I think she's important in the sense that she's got this really strong support base and people wanting her to run. I think the question is, though, you know, we made a lot of her meeting with Biden last week or last Saturday, but she also met with Clinton. She meets with Bernie Sanders fairly regularly. She's not endorsed somebody. I think if she did endorse somebody, that would be a big story. I think the big question for her is, does that help Elizabeth Warren? And my guess would be the answer to that is no. So I don't think she'll endorse anytime soon, if ever.
Bob Shrum, given the lateness of the entry, is that a real handicap for Vice President Biden? Does he
watch yourself? Watch yourself.
Oh my gosh!
Joe Biden appreciated that.
Yes, he did.
Look here, we're both gap prone.
Yeah, look, it is late. Although in earlier cycles this would have been about the right times, about the time when Bill Clinton announced in 1991. But the truth is that what's happened over the last several months, and Matt's right about this, is some Democrats have gotten worried about Hillary Clinton's performance, about how she'd do in a general election. They look at Quinnipiac polls that show her approval rating down around 37, 38% in states like Ohio and Pennsylvania. And so there's this sense that maybe there's room for somebody else, and somebody else who can speak to middle-class concerns. We all forget, by the way, Biden played, in my view, in 2008 and 2012, a really critical role in helping Barack Obama carry states like Pennsylvania and Ohio, and Florida, for that matter. He could talk to a lot of the folks that the president didn't reach quite so easily.
Right. So, Matt, let me ask you a couple questions. The first is, are you surprised that Bob Shrum agrees with so much of what you're saying today? And then secondly, I know
we could talk about the Republicans, and then we just disagree with
but secondly, do you think that who would be the most difficult matchup for a potential presidential nomination on the Republican side of a Donald Trump?
Okay, well, first of all, I think Bob Shrum has agreed with me so much because apparently he's become a professor, so he's gotten a lot wiser.
Wait a minute, hold on. I don't think your hand reached quite to the center of your back. All right.
So your follow-up question is, who is the strongest Republican?
Well, no. Who's the strongest Democrat that would match up more strongly against the Republicans?
Okay, so basically, I would, as a Republican, I'd like to run against Hillary Clinton. I don't think she's any kind of Bill Clinton candidate. I think she's much weaker. I think she presents a great opportunity for Republicans. And I think Joe Biden is someone that offers the Democrats another chance to kind of reset this race. Bernie Sanders, let's not forget about him, is leading in the polls in New Hampshire. Would I like to run against an avowed socialist? You bet your life I would.
All right, Bob Shrum, thanks for your time tonight. Matt Schlapp and Perry